Hello, everyone. So I want to just talk about this, and particularly in Cavan, a lot of people would know this, and in some parts of the country too, it's the same. That there is a boys' school for just boys, and there is a girls' school for just girls, which is St. Pat's used to be run by the brothers, and the Weather College was run by the sisters. Basically back in the Catholic Church's time, and still is to this day. Boys' school and girls' school only. And then you have, of course, Breffni College and the Royal School in Cavan. It used to be a private school, the Royal School. Now it's a public school. It's paid for the taxpayer. And Breffni College, of course, the secondary school that I went to was mixed school in terms of there was boys and girls. And to be totally honest with you, this debate has been going on for a good while in Cavan, and because especially because Breffni College has such amount of children going to it, etc. It's nearly 900 or so pupils. It's a lot that the old days I think of like say pants just for boys and the weather being just for girls. I do think there should be a mix because it doesn't make sense. I know years ago the idea was to keep them separated, etc. And that was the theory back years ago. But nowadays it doesn't make sense because when you go and get a job, take for example, when you get out of the secondary school, you go to college, take for example, there's none of that in college. You in with boys and girls, etc. And I don't think it benefits people. I really don't think it does. I think when I went to Breffni College, it was a lot more better having girls with boys, etc. Because it is a part of society, regardless of what way you look at it. You have to interact with women and and men, of course. But in the case of the women, but this is the thing. I don't think it's useful in a modern society in modern day Ireland. I don't think so. Because, as I say, when you go to college, you have to mix in with the other crowd. If it's a boy, you have to mix it with the girls, etc. You have to go into school with the girls, if that makes any sense. So I don't think it does service to a modern country, if that makes sense. A modern what the modern society is, and especially if you go to work too after college, there's no such thing as this isn't a whole men's workplace, etc. Some men's sheds, etc. Maybe, but workplace like a factory or take for example a shop, etc. They're not like this is only a boys' shop. There is of course men's shops, etc. There's women's shops, etc. That men probably wouldn't want to work in, etc. But you get what I'm saying. In the majority of workplaces, they can't really discriminate and say, "Oh yeah, this is they can't really." In a lot of employment, they can't really. But I do think it's a necessary thing to look at in modern Cavan now and modern now. And I do think it's necessary, and I think it's good for them. As I was just saying earlier on about development too, to interact with other people, women, etc. Because especially with young boys, particularly, we see them a lot. They're lacking the courage to go up to women, etc. To talk to women, etc. And to get into relationships and stuff. We see that in modern times now. People go onto social media to gain relationships. A lot of years ago it was all from schools. Take for example that they would have met their husband or their wife in school in a lot of cases. Or known them from the area, etc. In a lot of cases it did happen. Like the tech was Breffni College, etc. Back in the day, what it was called. It was a mixed school too. It wasn't run by the Catholic Church. But a lot of people would, and I know of a lot of cases of people that I know that used to go to the tech back many moons ago. They met their husband in the tech in Breffni College, or they met their wife in the tech, and that was a long relationship. But nowadays, especially if you're in say Pats or in Loretto College, that doesn't happen at that age, etc. But I do think it's important too for people's development, mental health, etc., to be interacting with women, etc., and women to be interacting with boys. I'm not saying it that way, but you know what I'm saying. But I do think it's something we should look at in Cavan. I do think we should look at it in Ireland too, because years ago was a different way of looking at things. I suppose nowadays it's different. It is different, regardless of what we think. And I think the majority of people would agree with that in Cavan, that it is a different way compared to maybe in the 1980s and the 1970s. It was a different time, I suppose. But I do think it's a lot more better for people's development, for human development, for their development, young children, or young men and young women's development, to be in together, if that makes any sense. Now, I know some people would probably disagree with that, but I do think majority of people would be happy enough for that. And especially in Cavan, as I say, they take the pressures off Breffni College, particularly. Breffni College is a huge amount because it's the only really mixed use school, apart from the Royal now, that's become free, basically, not private as it used to be. But we see how it goes. But what I'm trying to say, there's loads of places in St. Pat's. St. Pat's is a big modern school in a lot of cases. Then we have Loretto College, not as big, but still big nonetheless. But I do think we should look at it. We do have to look at it across the country, not just in Cavan, but I do think we should look at it. Because it doesn't make any sense, and I think that's Maybe 20, 30 years ago it did, but I think nowadays the more and more time progresses, I don't think it makes any sense. So I do think mixed schools are the best solution. Because I went to mixed school, etc. I do think it was a good solution. Now you could argue that the boys and the same with the girls could be too busy looking at the boys and looking at the girls, etc., than doing the studies, and maybe that's true to a certain degree. But I do think it's good for people. I do think it's good for the young people of Ireland to mix in with each other, and I think especially in boys' schools particularly. Not so much, but a few years ago and stuff, there was a few that came out, particularly in Cavan, that were very anti-women, etc., because they were so boy, I suppose masculine, as we would call it. They were very anti-women, etc., and all that, because they were all surrounded by boys, and they take women are beneath them, etc. I've seen that before happen in Cavan. There was one or two of them a few years ago like that. Very like that, which is not really acceptable in modern society. It's not acceptable at all to undermine anybody, and I would say the same for women too, to undermine men. It's everybody's equal in that regard. Men and women are equal, as simple as that. That's the way I see it, but I do think we should talk about it, because it's important to talk about it, especially the issues, as I say, with the numbers going to Breffni College and stuff, to take the strain off them, I suppose, in the way too, because as I say, Cavan only has 4 secondary schools, which sounds like a lot, but you have to remember too, the population of Cavan is increasing. It's going on 13,000. It's a lot in Cavan town, and then the surrounding areas too. You're talking about a lot of people. You could be talking about a lot of young people. We could be saying nearly, it's a lot. It is really, really a lot. It could be over 15, 16,000. It's a lot. And to be totally honest, it wasn't really designed for that numbers to be put into the system in Cavan. But anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more, and bye.